Hello class! This week we get to start working on measurement, which is always actually one of my favorite ones because we actually get to go out and measure things. So in your packet I included a paper tape measure, our measuring ruler, so that you can use that, or you are welcome to find one around your house if your parents have one that you can borrow. First let's talk about just the basic measurement rules. So this is a ruler that I have. It is only 6 inches long, but they come in lots of different sizes. So 6 inches, here's one. It's kind of hard to see because it's clear, but it is 12 inches long. And again, kind of tricky to see because it's clear. I'll put this behind it. There we go. These ones are inch rulers because they have inches on them. Okay, so these each have sections that have each inch. So when you measure, it's very, very important to remember that you always want to put whatever you're measuring on the end where it says 0. That says 6, and the end where the 0 would be. So this one doesn't say 0 like on our picture on the screen, but I would still put it on the end when I start to measure. We want to do that because that first space is kind of like on a number line. That first space is what we call 1 inch. That much of the space is 1 inch. And so if I start measuring from the 1, I'm going to end up with my object being 1 inch longer than it actually is because I didn't include that first inch. So if I'm measuring this crayon, I want to make sure I line it up on the 0, and then I just look over here to the end of it and I look at the number that it's by. So this one is 3, and then it's about halfway between 3 and 4, so it'd be about 3.5 inches, okay? So that's the most important thing to remember when you're measuring, is you always want to start on that very end of the ruler. This one, just turn that around, has, that's not the inch side, sorry guys. Here's the inch side. Now it has a little bit of a gap between the edge of the ruler and where the actual first line starts. So you'd put it on that first line rather than the edge of it, okay? Oh, and check out how cool this ruler is. It's changing colors because it's warming up. So it's purple when it's cold, and then when it heats up, look at that, it turns pink. What a cool ruler. Okay, so let's talk about using inches to measure. I'm sure that you guys have learned a little bit about measuring with inches. So when you're measuring things, this one says about because we're not getting down to the tiny, tiny little pieces on the ruler. See how it's broken up into more pieces than just those big gaps. We're focusing simply on it being to the 1 inch mark, okay? So depending on what you're measuring, you're only going to be worrying about the 1 inch mark and not anything else. So that's the first thing to think about. You are going to be actually measuring things for this assignment, and on your paper, I believe, sorry, let me check what page we're doing. You should have page 645 for this one. And you're going to be actually measuring some things. Now, if you don't actually have that item, it's okay, just cross it out and write in what you do measure that's, about the same type of a thing. So let's skip to the page you have. Actually, I wanted to talk about this one. Sometimes they're going to give you number problems, story problems that you have to figure out using our inches. And it's going to be just like any other thing that we're doing with adding and subtracting. So Laura's using a hiking stick that's 47 inches long. Rashawn is using a hiking stick that is 14 inches longer. Carly's hiking stick is 7 inches shorter than Rashawn's. Oh man, we're going to have to figure out this stuff with what we know. So the first thing we want to figure out is, this is what we know so far. So we know 47, and that was Laura's. So I'm going to use an L for Laura. And hers is 47 inches. Ha! That's always fun to write with a mouse. We know that Rashawn's is 14 inches longer. So what are we going to have to do with that? If it's longer, that means I have to add it. So if I just add up 14 inches here, now I can say 7 plus 4, that is 11. 7 plus 3 is 10, and 1 more is 11. So I bring my 10 over here. And 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, so we can see how long hers is. So 41 for Laura's, 47. Rashawn's would be 61 when we add those 14 extra inches. And now we know that Carly's is 7 inches shorter, so now we're going to have to do a subtraction problem. So we're going to have to do 47, take away those 7 inches, and oh, look at that. Number's the same, zero's the game, which means that hers is 40 inches. Oh, and that 4 wasn't nearly as nice. There we go. So when we're doing addition and subtraction with these, the numbers are just the same. We just want to label them using what our measurement is. So in this case, inches. Okay. So that you'll have some story problems later on that you'll need to know that information for. This is what the first of your pages looks like, 645. And it's just helping you to see this. So on the next slide, you're going to see that it tells you that an inch is about 1 colored block. We're not using colored blocks right now, so I'm going to show you another trick of something to measure an inch that you're always going to have on you. See my thumb? Haha. 1 inch is about that first joint from the tip of your thumb to where the first bend is. That's about 1 inch, and I'll prove it to you with my ruler. So if I hold that up there, you see that? Go this way. It's about 1 inch, okay? So yours might be just a little shorter because your thumbs aren't, quite as long as mine are. That's about 1 inch. So I can use that when I am measuring things, and I can think, okay, well, if I hold my thumb up to this, I can kind of get an idea, and there's, 1, and kind of hold it still and move it over and kind of guess. That's called estimating. When we guess about how long something is, we estimate. So if I look at this golf tee right here, I would, and I look at this ruler against it, I would say that's probably about 2 inches, okay? If I could move this ruler over, which I can't sadly, it would be about 2 inches. It looks like it would split right about here. So I'm going to say that this one is 2 inches. Okay. Now on your paper, you can actually measure it out and see if my estimate is correct, because you can actually use that, and it is to scale. So then I'd look at this highlighter. Man, that's a little bigger. This cap is about 1 inch. So if I took that, then I'm going to actually use my thumb here, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. So there's 1. It's about 2. I don't know, does it look like 4? About 4 inches, I would think. That's what I get. And then I do the same for the crayon, and because I just measured a crayon, I know that it's more than 3, but less than 4. So that one's kind of tricky. We'd have to say what we'd have to do our best guess. So maybe this is a short crayon, and really it's only like 3 inches, because it's not as big as that highlighter, that's for sure. And then I have a hockey puck. We have to figure out how wide it is across here. So I'd say that might be a little short on the inch side. I think that one's about 3 inches too. The crayon and the hockey puck are about the same. And remember, we're going to the inch, and so it might be a little bit off. We're just getting close. We're not going to the absolute. So if they're a little off, that's okay. So on your own papers, measure those out with your either paper ruler or the one that you're using, and go ahead and measure those out and write them down. If mine aren't correct, we can see if that's different. Let's see what they tell us. Oh, I was wrong on the highlighter. They said 6. So I estimated a little low on that one, and that's okay. So let's look at our vocabulary. We have the word inch, and it's about the length of 1 color tile. Length is simply from one end to the other. You can use what you know about inches to estimate. Remember, that's to kind of figure it out and guess the length of an object, and then use the inch ruler to actually do the measurement. So when I look at my crayon and I say, oh, it looks like it's about 3 inches, that's estimating. And then when I take my ruler and I actually put it up next to it, that's measuring. Okay, so that's our vocabulary for this lesson. And we're going to add to it, I think, a couple more words. That's the top of your back page, by the way, so you can fill that in. These are going to be the 2 objects that you're measuring in inches. Okay, so they have a box of chalk, a box of crayons. You can even do a box of markers if you have one of those. Just something that you have to measure. You're going to estimate, guess about how many you think it is, and then actually do the measurements on those 2. Okay. The next page you're going to be working on should be 651. Make sure I have my notes down here. So let's look at this one first. It says, look at the picture of a pencil. The length of the pencil is measured in inches. About how long? Remember, it doesn't go directly to this next number, but because it's closest to it, that's what we would say is it's about 3 inches. And that's why they use the word about, because it's not exact, but it's close. So that's what we did here. Describe how to estimate the length of an object. I look at it, I think about how long 1 inch is, and I estimate how much it is. We're going to talk now about, I'm going to skip through these ones real quick because we need to get to this page. Okay, we're going to talk about other ways that you can measure things. Now remember I said I had this little tiny 6-inch ruler. Well, that is half of a foot. This big long plastic one, which is harder to see, I apologize, I should have found a different color. It's 2 of these. So here's one of them. If I slide it over, there's the other one. Okay, so this big long plastic one, which is really hard to see, there's this shininess on it. This is a foot ruler, a 1-foot ruler. Okay, this has 12 inches in it. There's the last number, you can't see. This has 12 inches, and that is 1 foot. Okay, so in your 1 foot, you're going to look at this page, and it says, circle the objects that could be measured with an inch ruler. Okay, draw an X on the objects that are too big to be measured with an inch ruler. So this is what they're talking about when they talk about an inch ruler. Not my little bitty short one, but this longer one of 2 of those short ones, okay? So think about those real life things, okay? So if I look at the basketball, I could measure that one. I could measure the shoes. I can measure the chair. I can measure the clock. The door is too big, so we'd cross that out. The benches are too big. The basketball hoop's too big, okay? So you're gonna do that on yours. And we have 2 more vocabulary words we need to look at. Okay, so we have a foot. We talked about that. A foot is equal to 12 inches. And then we have a yard. Okay, now I'm going to have to back up the camera for this because I have a yard. A yard is really long. It is 3 feet. And I have a fun little thing to show you. So if you look at this, it's really long. I don't know. It's back here. And it's long because it is 3 feet and it has 36 inches. And I want to show you this cool thing that I made to help you remember it. Okay, so I have Princess Pat and Peg Leg Pete. Now because Pete has a peg leg, there are only 3 feet. So Princess Pat has 2, Peg Leg Pete has 1, that's 3. So Princess Pat and Peg Leg Pete have 3 feet in a yard. See, they're in the yard. So if you keep that visual in your mind, it'll help you to remember how many feet are in a yard, because that is going to be something that we're using later on. Okay, so they have this great visual for you that's also on your page. So if you happen to have a handy yardstick, like I do, you can use that to measure some of those bigger things. If not, you can manage it with a ruler. Okay. Now you have one more page that you're going to be working on, and that is page 675. And our question starts with, what's the relationship between inches, feet, and yards? Okay, so they kind of go up in size, and that's how they work together. Inches are the smallest. Remember, about the size of my thumb, my first joint of my thumb. There are 12 of those in 1 foot, and a foot is about the length of your arm. Okay, so it goes from my elbow. Let's see if I go this way. It's about the length of my arm. Like if I make a fist, that's about a foot, 12 inches. And then it takes 3 of those to make my really big long yardstick out here, okay? It takes 3 of those. 3 feet in a yard. Remember Princess Pat and Peg Leg Pete. So you're going to be working on those 3 pages. I'm just about out of time, so I just want to show you what it looks like before it cuts me off. If I can find it. There you go. Nope, that's not the page it starts on either. it will be the My Homework for this one. And you're just going to find